In this video, I will explain that how we can find or calculate price and quantity when there is equilibrium in the market. Mean when there is a situation or a state where supply is equals to demand. We can use three different sources to find out or calculate price and quantity at the equilibrium point. And what are these three sources of information? Sometimes we have given information about supply and demand in form of table. So you are going to learn that how we can determine the price at which both supply and demand are equal. Okay, and then sometimes we have given a graph where we have supply and demand curves, and there how can we determine by using that information given in that graph to determine the point of equilibrium. And then the third method which we can use to determine use to determine the equilibrium price and quantity is the use of algebra. Sometimes we have given equations for supply and demand, and here you are going to learn that how we can use these equations by using some algebra to determine price and the quantity at the equilibrium point. So let us start now. Sometimes we have given information on quantity demanded and quantity supplied in form of table at different market prices. So in that case, how can we determine the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity, which is actually the main purpose of this lesson, that we need to find out the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity by using the information given in the table. So in that case, what we have to do, we have to find out that price, right, at which both demand, quantity demanded is equals to quantity supply. Okay, now consider this table. In this table you can see that there are three columns, and in first column prices are given, in second column quantity demanded, and in third column quantity supplied is reported. So when price is 0, quantity demanded is given as 32, while quantity supplies is equals to 0, because no supplier is going to supply any good at a price 0, because there is always a cost involved in the production of a good. So it is not a good decision to supply any good at price 0. Okay, you can see from here that as there is an increase in the price from 0 to 2, and then from 2 to 4, and then from 6 to 8, you can see that quantity demanded at each price is going to decrease, which is exactly according to the law of demand, that at higher prices quantity demanded is going to be lower. On the other hand, when the price increases, it is profitable for the supplier or sellers to sell more. So at each higher price, you can see that quantity supply is going to increase. So as price increase, what you have analyzed from this table, quantity demanded is going to decrease while quantity supply is going to increase, right? So in order to find out the equilibrium price, for what you have to do, you have to find out that price at which this condition of equilibrium holds. So when price is 2, you can see that the demand is greater than the supply, right? Or we can say that there is an excess demand. So there is actually a kind of shortage, and when price increases from 2 to 4, then you can see that quantity demanded become equals to the quantity supplied, and there is no excess supply, no excess demand, no shortage, no surplus. Okay, so it means that when price is equals to 4, right, when price is equals to 4, then the equilibrium quantity is actually exactly equals to 16. So it is very very easy. But one more point you must I must want to add here, that when price increases from 4 to 6, what you can analyze from here, that the quantity demanded is going to be lower than the quantity supplied. So what does it mean? That supply is greater than demand, or we can say that there is a surplus of good. Okay, whenever quantity demanded is greater than quantity supplied, there will always be a shortage. So at equilibrium there will be no shortage, no surplus, and both quantities are equal. So this is actually a very you can say easy method to apply or to understand how can we determine the prices and the quantities at the equilibrium point. Sometimes we have given information on demand and supply curve in a graph, and we have to use that information from the graph to find out the equilibrium price and quantity. Again, the method is very simple. What you have to do, you have to find out that point where both quantity demanded is equals to the quantity supply. So here in this graph we can see that both demand and supply are equal at this point, which we can define as point E. And this is the point where both demand and supply, they are equal. Quantity demanded is equals to quantity supply. In order to find out the price and equilibrium quantity, what we have to do, we have to move from this intersection point on the price axis to find out the equilibrium price, and it is $4 in this case. Again, in order to find out the equilibrium quantity, what we have to do, we have to move from this point on the quantity axis, and you will have the equilibrium quantity. This is actually the quantity which is traded between buyer and seller. Okay, any other quantity or price, at any other quantity or price, the market is not going to be in equilibrium. So in order to analyze that, let us now suppose that price is not 4, it is $6. Then at this price you can see that the demand is 8 units, while the supply is 24 units. So what does it mean? It means that here the supply is greater than the demand, means quantity supply is greater than quantity demanded. So whenever we have this situation, we always have a surplus in the market. Surplus of good will be in the market. Why? Because people at this higher price will demand lower quantity, while higher prices sellers are ready to supply more of that good. On the other hand, if you consider any price lower than, so it means that when price is high, there is an incentive for the seller to reduce price, so that buyers, they will buy more, and in this way sellers, they can get rid of that surplus by lowering price. So price will move towards the equilibrium price. Now consider the price which is lower than the equilibrium price. In this case, let us consider the $2 price. At this lower price, what will happen to the demand and supply? You will see that the demand is going to be 8, supply is going to be 8, because price is very low. So some sellers, they don't want to supply goods, so they just leave the market, and the rest of the sellers, they will ready to supply only 8 units of good, while this lower price uh, will increase the demand for that good in the market. And now people, they are actually demanding 24 units of that good. So in this case, what you have seen here, that at any price which is lower than the lower than the equilibrium price, quantity demanded is always going to be lower than the quantity supply, not quantity demanded. Quantity supply is going to be low quantity supply is going to be lower than the quantity demanded. So this is actually showing an excess demand in the market, or we can say that there is actually a shortage in the market, shortage of good in the market. So there is uh, there is an incentive for sellers to produce or supply more and charge a higher price because there is a shortage, so they are in a position to charge a higher price. So that's why price will move again upward, right? That's why we can say that in free market system, prices are actually stable. If because of some reasons prices are lower or higher than the equilibrium price, then automatic forces of demand and supply will push the price and quantity towards their equilibrium level. Okay, so that's all for this slide. Let's move to the next method, which where we are going to use algebra to resolve equilibrium price and quantity by using equations. Sometimes we have given equations for demand and supply, and what we need to do, we need to find out or determine prices and quantity at the equilibrium point. How can we do that? We can easily find out or determine the price and quantity at the equilibrium point by using simple algebra. So let us take the same example of demand and supply given on the previous slide. Here I just have used the demand and supply equations based on the information given in the table and graph on the previous slides. Okay, so the first equation is basically the demand equation, and the second equation is the supply equation. It is the supply equation. Okay, and how can we identify the demand and supply equation? The method is very simple. That what you have to see, you have to see the sign of the relation between prices and quantity. This equation, the both of these equations are showing an equation for a linear demand, right? For a linear demand curve. You can see that prices are connected to the quantity negatively here, as it is obvious with this negative sign of this of the slope of the demand curve. That's why we can say that it is the demand equation. On the other hand, you can see that prices are positively correlated with the quantity, as it is obvious from the slope sign of the slope, which is positive, right? So that's these are the simple steps to identify an equation as the demand or supply equation. As a next step, what we need to do, we need to find out the price and quantity when there is equilibrium in the market of a good. So for that, what we need to do, we need to apply the equilibrium condition, right? Equilibrium condition. What is the equilibrium condition? Equilibrium condition is it can be defined as an equality between the demand and supply. So a market is said to be in equilibrium where the demand for good is equals to the supply for good, as you already have learned it on the previous slides. So now in this example, what is demand? The demand equation is given as 8 minus 0.25, and the supply equation is given 0.25, and you can see that the intercept of the supply equation, the intercept of the supply equation is equals to 0. Why? because uh, the supply curve is actually starting from zero, right? The supply curve is starting from zero, that's why the intercept is equals to 0. Okay, come back here. So I just put the demand and the supply equation in this equality for demand and supply. So it is equals to, we can write it like this. Now we have to solve it for Q or quantity. So Q is equals to zero point 0.5 is Q is equals to 8, and when you solve it for Q, you will have uh, you will have 16 as the quantity which is determined by equating demand and supply. So we can say that QE is the equilibrium quantity, which is equals to 16, which is equals to 16. Now what about the price? For price, what we need to do, we just need to substitute this quantity in any of these equations, either in demand or in supply. You will have the same answer. So let us put this value of Q in demand equation. Demand equation is 8 P equals to 8 minus 0.25 Q, and then 8 minus 0.25, and then Q is equals to 16. So when you solve it, it is equals to, it is going to be 4. So when price is equals to 4, quantity demanded is going to be 16, and when quantity demanded, which is actually the equilibrium quantity, is 16, then at that quantity the equilibrium price is going to be 4. So our solution actually suggests that at the equilibrium point, PE and QE are equals to 4 and 16, which is same as you have determined in by using the tabulation approach or the graph approach. So basically what you have learned here, that we need to equate both demand and supply equation, and then solve for Q, and then substitute that Q in any of demand or supply equation. You will have the equilibrium price. Okay, now I am going to substitute this what should I say, quantity in supply equation. Okay, just for to be confident that our calculations are right or not. Okay, so it is equals to, P is equals to 0.25 Q. So 0.25 multiplied by 16. So again you are going to have 0.25 over 100, and then 16 you will have P equals to 4. So it actually confirms that the price which you have calculated, it is actually the right one. That's all for this method. One more point I want to add here, and which is very important, that sometimes we have given quantity demanded and quantity demand equation in form of quantity demanded, and supply equation in form of quantity supply. So again the equilibrium condition is same. In that case you need to equate, you can write your equilibrium condition like this, and then the rest of the procedure is same, that you have to solve the equation first for Q, and then you have to substitute in any of demand or supply equation to find out the price. I hope you will find this video useful. If you like this video, please thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel. And if you want to see further more videos, please comment in the comment section below the video.